Welcome to Makers International, a podcast of makers, connecting with makers from all around the world. Here's your hosts, Jamie Page, Chris Cute, and now, Richard Morley.
G'day. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, and all that stuff. This week on the show, we have Mr. Chris Cute.
Hello, how are you?
Richard isn't here at the moment, but he should be along any minute as soon as he can boot out his guests. And we've also got Damo, all the way from down under.
G'day, how you doing?
So, I'm just going to say about the sponsors before we get into anything. So, this week's podcast is sponsored by Yorkshire Grit, the Wood Turns Abrasive Paste. Our good friend Chad over at Man Crafting, who supplies us with this awesome powder-coated custom Yeti mugs.
Cheers.
Pam from Highland Boxes, and Steve from Harnell Media. And Steve, please get well soon.
How's he doing, Jamie?
I think he's doing well. He had surgery Monday, I believe. As soon as I hear anything from Eloy, he's normally the one that keeps me updated. I'll let everybody know.
All right. Awesome.
There was a link last week on last week's show to Steve's GoFundMe. If anyone has got any loose change to help him out. So, so that's all the sponsors. If you want to find more about our sponsors, go to makersinternationalpodcast.com/sponsors, and that's about it. So, do we have any random listener questions, Chris?
Well, we have a lot of questions for Damien. And I know a lot of people are going to call you Damo. And I don't know, what do you go by, Damien? I mean, do you go by Damien or Damo or both, or doesn't it matter? Can I just call you?
It depends on who knows me, I guess. Yeah, Damo is common. I started using that just because it's one less syllable than Damien.
While we're on the subject of names, I don't know if it's just me. So my sister married an Australian guy whose name's Dave, right? But he's named Davo, right?
Yes.
You're Damien and you're called Damo. So today I've changed my name to JPO.
Maybe I should be Chriso. And that sounds a lot like Crisco, and I don't have a lot of fat in my can, so I don't know if I can go by that.
When we in the show, we'll say cheerio.
Right. Well, that's an English thing.
Oh yeah, man. Well, Damien,
you'd be Jimmy here.
Well, thanks for waking up early for us, because I know this is a Sunday evening for Jamie, a Sunday afternoon for me, but it's pretty darn early in a Monday morning for you. Yes. So I do appreciate you coming to us, Mr. Future, because obviously, Damien's living in the future. And I asked him before we went on if anything strange has happened, just to give us a clue and hopefully get a scoop. And he said, no, nothing's going on. So all right, never mind.
No, secret.
Yeah. He's keeping stuff from us.
We're obliged to keep our mouths shut from you guys. All right. Well, it's good to have you on. And let me ask a quick question, because people that may not be familiar with you may not know that you even have a YouTube channel, but you do. Tell me what the name of your YouTube channel is, and then I'm going to want you to explain the name. So go ahead. What's the name of your YouTube channel?
My YouTube channel is OOJAGAPIVY. That's Dan Brent made that for me when I visited him once.
Oh,
I know a lot of you know Dan.
The Duck Man.
Yes, and but OOJAGAPIVY just I have a couple of YouTube channels, and I wanted to try and make a brand new one because the other one had copyright strikes and on music and stuff like that, which just started to bug me. And so that whole thing of, do you call yourself? I actually looked up whether I could use Burke's Workshop or my name was already taken by quite a lot of people because it is a common name. Not that one, but my real name. And because I teach and have so many broad interests. I couldn't call myself wood shop. I couldn't call myself metal shop. I couldn't call myself workshop because at the time I didn't actually have one here at the house.
Right.
And I wanted something that sort of encompassed everything but didn't really make much sense. And so OOJAGAPIVY was a word that my grandmother would use when I was a kid if she couldn't think of something when she was talking. And so it's kind of like, and I've heard somebody in one of the lives that I've been watching recently said Ujima flip is a word that was used by people if they couldn't think of the word.
Yeah, couldn't think of it. Yeah, we use that.
Yeah, OOJAGAPIVY was my grandmother's one. And I've always just thought of it as a word that means or stood for anything and everything. And that's what my YouTube channel is. It's anything and everything because I'm not tied down to one project area type stuff. Because I do build woodwork, I do metal work, I do DIY, I do automotive, all that sort of stuff. So I couldn't call it wood shop and then branch off. But if I call it OOJAGAPIVY, who knows what it means? And it means everything.
That's kind of what my question was going to be about.
Cool.
Because OOJAGAPIVY, God bless your grandmother, first of all. But is there an origin for that word, or is that just a word that she kind of just combobulated in her head and decided to start using? I mean, because I don't know. I'm not Australian, Damien, so please forgive me if this sounds ignorant, but I didn't know if that was Aboriginal or where that word came from, or is this just something she thought up one night when she couldn't figure out why the chicken was undercooked? I don't know. I know. Well, after hearing other people saying Ujima flip, and they said maybe it's a regional thing, was OOJAGAPIVY the one that was used? But my grandmother's the only person I've ever heard use it until I started using it and annoyed the hell out of her because I'd use it for everything and joke around with it because I was only like 12 or something like that, if that. Well, I don't mind telling you, you've annoyed the hell out of me for the last 8 weeks trying to pronounce your name when you make a comment on one of these shows that we're doing. Because it's like, I'm not calling you that, Damien. I'm calling you Damien. It's like, I'm sorry.
Well, I think in the about on my YouTube channel, I sort of break it out into the syllables, and it's like OOJAGAPIVY.
Right.
Yeah.
I get it. All right. Whatever. Anyway.
Most people call me Ooj.
I'm just going to start calling you Pivy and see if that pisses you off. Chris Murray has a question for you. And we'll start this off on a light note because Chris, if you're out there and you're actually watching today, you're an idiot. Anyway, his question is, do Australian Jaffa cakes have the cake on the bottom and the Jaffa goodness on the top?
And like I said, I have no idea what a Jaffa cake is.
Neither do I.
When I see it in all the chats from England and they're all going on about the Jaffa cakes and that sort of stuff, whether it's a cake, whether it's a biscuit, it's all to do with the tax. And I'm just going, I've no clue what it is. They've got to be good though if people are trying to eat them all the time.
Yeah, big time. Let's do something a little bit more relatable then. Do you take the bite out of each corner of a Tim Tam and then drink your milk through it?
I have done that. Because I'd heard about it, I wanted to see what it was like, and it melts really quick through coffee onto it.
For all the Brits, that's like our penguins.
Oh, God. All right. So I have to recognize that Richard has joined us. Hi, Richard.
Hi,
Richard.
I've been listening intensely, and I didn't want to jump in or anything, but yes, hi. Hi, Damo. How you getting on?
Not too bad, mate.
Apologies for my tardiness, first off.
No, that's fine. But Richard, I actually invited you to this conversation because I need a definition, as does Damien. Maybe can you tell me what a Jaffa cake is? Because I have no clue.
Jaffa cakes, it's a biscuit.
Well, you say really... biscuit and I say cookie. I mean, what is it?
Yeah, so I mean, like you have like hard cookies, like Cookie Monster kind of firm. Think of it more. I'm trying to
sponge.
A bit like pound cake.
Okay.
Yeah, like a thin-ish bit of pound cake, sort of, I guess. But it
with the topping on it.
Yeah, and then you get like orange jelly. So, well, you call it jello. For us, it's jelly. I don't know what. I think the Australians use the real words for them, don't
Jelly.
you? Jelly, yeah. So it's like a blob of jelly, really thin, and then chocolate over the top of that. So it's sort of an orangey, cakey, chocolate covered.
So the Jaffa name probably comes from the lollies that are orange on the outside, chocolate on the inside. And,
yeah. So in England, Jaffa is I think it's a brand name or a type of orange. So Jaffa in the UK is associated instantly with oranges.
I don't care. I just want one. After that description, I want one, and I feel deprived being in America.
So if anyone from McVitie's is
how big are they? Because I've
I'm just like I'm going to write
not sponsored yet.
2-inch diameter, 50 mil, something like that. They're not huge. They're only easily you could get one in your mouth and just gone.
Yeah, well, I saw Dale talking about it the other day, saying he'd like down quite a few in a sitting.
Yeah, they're actually horrendously expensive when you compare them to other biscuits. Welcome to the biscuit show for everyone who's joining us late. Because they're like a pound a pack if you go somewhere decent. You literally only get 10
I
of them
think that's
in
the Happy Shopper ones. I think something like
that. They're not cheap.
I'm going to write to biscuit. I'm going to write to the Pillsbury Doughboy and ask him, WTF, because I need them here in America because they sound good.
I can't believe McVitie's haven't done like that you have like for your lunchbox at school or for your docky at work, you have like a cakey bar type thing. I can't believe they haven't done like a wagon wheels type Jaffa cake.
Oh, there is a single big one that you can buy.
Oh, is that?
Yeah.
Obviously they do then. I'm completely behind the times, so I do apologise.
Mm-hmm.
Replacing the wagon wheels, which are getting smaller and smaller, more like a cart wheel now.
Yeah, there you go.
The back wheel for the penny farthing.
For the sake of getting off cakes and getting on with the show.
Yeah, get back. Let's get back to the more important questions. Boxers or briefs?
Oh, Jesus.
Bam!
Boxer briefs.
There you go.
Oh, you're a hybrid. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, that works. Hey, Commando's more respected, but I'll take that. That's close.
I haven't been commando since I was a kid.
Yeah.
Too afraid of getting caught in the zipper.
I understand that.
And people would have to have had that happen to understand. Anyway. That's an all I'm going to say is that's an owie. But Damien, so we can move on with some intelligent questions today. Give us what are you currently doing? I know you are a teacher, but what do you do?
I'm a head teacher of industrial arts, and our faculty is actually called a TAS faculty, standing for Technological and Applied Studies. It was a faculty that was made up when they decided that industrial arts and home economics couldn't live apart from each other. Sort of in the downsizing world of things, like you'll still find some schools with a home ec faculty and an industrial arts faculty, depending on the size, but smaller schools don't. They have TAS faculties. And so I have staff who teach home economics, hospitality, woodwork, metalwork, but I've also got all the computing people as well in my faculty. So I've got a really, really broad. And when I started at the school, the maths faculty actually had the computing people, and the principal at the time said, "Do you want to look after computing as well?" Because I was the tech admin at my previous school and did all the computing stuff, and so I picked up the computing faculty as well. And it's only a small faculty because it's only a school that's about 650 kids. And so I'm one of the smallest number we've ever had of staff is 6, but we've had up to 9 inside the same faculty.
So you got a pretty broad spectrum within which you work, obviously.
Yeah. My faculty areas are design, industrial technology, construction, engineering, and then the other staff will do some of the other things. I've got one other guy who teaches similar stuff to me, and we all basically teach the junior subjects in year 7 and 8 because it's called technology mandatory, which gives you an idea that you have to do it because of the name.
So I'm going to assume that you're in a sort of 11 to 16, possibly 17, 18 age
range. Years 7 through 12, so 11-year-olds through to 18s.
Yeah, so that's the same kind of school years that we have over here, just so I can kind of relate to it in terms of.
Well, actually, my school is part of a collegiate. They started making colleges in our state to try and combat the idea of having small senior year groups, because once upon a time you could leave school when you were 16 here, or 15, 9 months was the age range that you could leave school at. Technically, so get to the end of year 10, didn't have to do 11 and 12. And there was, where I teach was a low socioeconomic area, so a lot of kids would just drop out, and your high school year groups would be absolutely tiny. So we're now they basically got 5 schools that were within close proximity to each other and said, okay, you're now part of a college, and we'll make one school a year 11 and 12 school, and the others were all going to be 7 to 10. And my school just happened to have a community that said, we're not going to get rid of our year 11 and 12 because the campus actually goes from preschool all the way to year 12. So the community were used to kids going to the school and staying there to the very end, and it was very community minded. So I was lucky enough to come into a school that had 7 to 12 already.
So with these, what kind of catchment area size-wise have you got for your school? Because in my head, and I'm going to show my ignorance, and I'll do it because I know people are going to be thinking the same. Depending on where you are in the country, you could have quite a large sort of footprint in terms of where your students come in from. Does that make sense? Or are you in sort of a city or large town?
We're in one of the western suburbs of Sydney.
Right. And
so it's a fairly densely populated area, but there's no high rise or anything, and it's all just housing. And there is a map of where our catchment area is and what schools or where you live can be, where you can come into. Ours is actually a little bit broader, because if you're enrolling in year 7, the rules are you can only go to your closest high school. But because we're part of a college, if you live anywhere in the college catchment area, you can go to any of the campuses. So we kind of fight against each other for who gets the year 7 kids. But once after year 7, if you want to come into a school like a late enrollment, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, or up to 10, you have to live in the area. So if somebody tried to enroll in year 9 in our school and they lived in the area for one of the other campuses, then they say, no, you should be going to the other campus.
That kind of makes sense, I guess. Otherwise, you've got kids driving past one school to go to another
and
school.
And they do that for year 11 and 12, because we have got a senior college that's just 11 and 12. And so generally, the kids from the other junior campuses will go to that school or ours. And we might get a handful of kids who come in from the other campuses. Most of them usually go to the senior campus, and we just keep our own. But we do sometimes snag some extras.
Well, since we're on the education aspect of this, because that's primarily what you do for a living, obviously. Andy Pugh, our good buddy. Hey, Andy, how are you, bud?
Hi, Andy.
This is kind of a teacher-based question, isn't it?
Absolutely. Are you kidding? Because we know Andy himself is a teacher. Andy asks a question he wants to know your thoughts on. And, not that your thoughts are right or wrong. He just wants to know what you think. I'd be interested to hear his thoughts on STEM teaching in Australia and how it compares to what you might know about what is happening in other areas like the US and the UK. First of all, STEM, let's define that. That's science, technology, engineering and math. Okay. But are you involved in a STEM program at the schools that you work at?
I got really narky about the term STEM when it turned up because I didn't realise it until I went to a professional development day, but engineering has been taught in our school since the 70s. And apparently we're one of the only education areas which will teach engineering in high school as opposed to college. But when the catchphrase STEM came up and people started describing what it was, my whole faculty sort of went, well, that's already what we do. But people in the maths faculty and the science faculties all went, oh, this new stuff, let's go try and get a jump on into that. And whenever they started offering specialised training in STEM throughout the department, it was always offered to maths and science teachers, but not technology teachers. And when they then got the before the A got added for STEAM, and they started talking about the term STEAM, our art faculty wanted to try and do a STEM project and sort of pull in some the really good kids to be part of the STEM project. And I refused to be part of it.
Good for you.
Because it was, my faculty area. And I actually create the timetable for our school every year. And so in year 7 and 8, our subject, once upon a time, used to be called Design and Technology. It then became known as Technology Mandatory when they changed the syllabus. The mandatory to basically say, you have to do this in year 7 and 8. And we always called it TM on the timetable just to shorten it. I changed that to STEM on the timetable. And I remember my principal coming up to me when I was doing that, and he goes, "Are you shit stirring?" And I said, "Yes."
I mean, let's be honest, STEM or STEAM, they're nothing more than acronyms for the subjects that the children are being taught. Now, where their interest lies in one area of those either 4 or 5 letter words, it really depends on the student. But let me move on to another question from Chris. And it's not that I'm not interested in STEM or STEAM. It's just that I kind of know where you're headed with that. Are there any Australian-specific crafts that are being taught? And if there are, and he's talking basically about woodwork here now, Damien. So, and I know you're not. Yeah. I mean, I know you do a ton of stuff, and so, but if you had to give your opinion, what is the nicest native wood that you have to work with or turn in Australia? So, the first question is: are there any Australian-specific crafts that are being taught? And I don't know what that means. I don't know if he's talking about Aboriginal things or what he's trying to implicate there. I don't know what he means by that, but maybe you do.
I wouldn't know if there is a. I wouldn't think that there is an actual Australian-specific craft unless you are actually getting involved in the Aboriginal perspective side of the subject, and then it just becomes whether you. I kind of think it's a little bit taboo for people who aren't Aboriginal to engage in making Aboriginal things, because especially the painting, because the painting has a very religious aspect to it. And I've had that opinion since I was in high school, and I had one girl in our art class who started doing a very Aboriginal inspired painting, and she wasn't Aboriginal. I said, should you be doing that? But I know that whenever the cliched thing, if you're trying to include a Aboriginal perspective, is let's go make a boomerang, cut a boomerang out of plywood and paint it. And that's quite often the thing that they'll do. And I kind of refuse to do that as well. I've been asked to cut out boomerangs on the bandsaw for the primary school, and I've done that. But
so I mean, okay. So you're not qualifying yourself as having Australia having a special craft. To off the world, outside of what you just mentioned. Okay.
So you can actually get Baltic birch plywood in Australia.
I have never seen it. I've never seen it, and the ply. We've actually got a company that specialises in selling plywood. They're called Mr. Ply and Wood, and I've never actually looked for Baltic birch. I'll buy just construction grade or furniture grade plywood, and it's usually just radiata pine or a hardwood one. I've bought hardwood plywood, and that stuff's as heavy as anything.
No, it is. I mean, yeah, oh boy, it is. But if you have is there an indigenous species of wood that you're familiar with that?
There's lots of them.
Well, my question was, the second part of that was is there one that you would prefer to use than over another?
I really like Jarrah.
Jarrah. Jarrah.
Yeah, I see. Is it Pask makes or Pask makes?
He's used it. It's indigenous to Western Australia. It was originally used for railway sleepers over there because it was such a dense hardwood. And it's a really deep, dark red color.
Yeah.
And I've had students use it, and therefore I've used it because of their scraps. It's nice to turn.
It's a form of eucalyptus.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. But it's dense. I mean, is it porous? I've never worked with it. I don't know.
No, it's a very heavy, dense timber.
Nice.
If you try and use things like routers, it burns easy because of how dense it is and how long it takes to try and get the timber, the blades through. And if you try and take a router cutter to it that's not sharp, it will actually burn the timber, and it's really hard to get that burn mark out.
Why would you use a router anyway?
I use them all the time.
It's kind of like using a router on maple, because I mean maple burns like a mother, and it's a pain in the butt to sand that burn out. Anyway, go ahead, Richard.
I was just going to say, I managed to get hold. I've got some Jarrah, and I've only used a very tiny bit of it. And Kat, if you're listening, there's the little. I did a foldy box. You know, when you make a cube with all mitered edges, and then you glue the two C's, and they kind of slide together, and it looks like it looks like one solid piece. I made one of those out of some Jarrah that I had, and it was a burr. And like Damo was saying, so that real deep, dark, kind of purpley red, and it's so smooth. When you cut it with a sharp blade, it just is a mirror polish finish. It's beautiful.
It turns really nice.
I've never got to turn any because I've never had anything kind of chunky
I made
enough.
the mistake. I made the mistake back in university of I turned something in Jarrah, and whenever I turn, I always burnish the wood with the shavings that are sitting on the lathe. And I later turned something in pine, and when I went to burnish it, there was still Jarrah things on the thing, and it turned the pine pink. So it really burnt the red color into the pine.
Oh man,
it stinks. It stinks to cut. It's a very a lot of hardwoods have a really distinct smell when you're trying to cut it, and the shavings usually come off really fine if your blades are sharp.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You know why I like turning really, really hard wood like ebony and things of that nature is because it's really hard to screw those up.
Yeah, you rarely get tear out in them.
Oh, it's hard to get tear out when you're turning that much of a dense wood. I'm sorry, I just suck on the lathe, and so I enjoy turning really hard woods that don't give me issues. Anyway, enough about my faults. Andy has
That's a really good tip, Chris. Sorry,
it's an honest to God truth. It's the truth.
Yeah.
The denser the wood you turn, the less chance you have of screwing it up.
Yeah,
turning pine is really depressing.
Oak as well. Oak chips out and does the same sort of thing because it's
that sort of it kind of gets a lot of my students depressed about it too, because it'll tear out and they have to sand for so long.
Yeah.
But it's often the sort of stuff you want to start them with because it's cheap, and you don't if they're going to stuff around. But the most common timbers I have in my school are pine, because it's plantation based.
It's prevalent. Yeah, it's there. It's available. It's cheap. Right, I hear you.
And then Meranti is the other one. When I was growing up, they called it Queensland maple. And now they tend to call it Meranti because that was the Pacific name for it. And it turns really well. It'll still tear out, but it doesn't have as tougher grain structure. Like pine has soft and hard sections.
Oh yeah.
And Meranti, you rarely see any grain in it unless it's the denser heartwood side. And it turns fairly well and will sand fairly well on the lathe.
So we had a question out in the chat a little while ago from Emma of the Dragons. She said, Damo, do you tell your pupils that you have a YouTube channel?
Yeah, they know it. I've had one kid ask if he's allowed to follow me, and I said, I don't care. Same with Instagram and that sort of stuff. I think I've got 4 channels, one that I've forgotten about. The one that I had many years ago, which I started probably back in 2012, and then I started the OOJAGAPIVY one when I wanted to try and get a little bit more focused in what I was doing, and then that disappeared, and it's everything and anything. But I've also got one for my school because I wanted to do teachable lessons on the channel, and so it'll have school specific stuff on it, and so if I share that out, then it's the Mr. Burke channel. It's not the OOJAGAPIVY.
Yeah.
Do any of your students have a YouTube channel, or have they, or Instagram? Do they? I mean, I'm sure they do Instagram. I don't know how in tune with what your kids are up there doing. I mean, without you working about it, is there anybody out there expressing an interest in putting it forward in that shape that you're aware of?
We've had some kids who said they wanted to be a YouTuber when they grow up, because it seems to be so, it's the thing to do now.
I don't know.
And you say, okay, so what do you want to do when you become a YouTuber? Ooh, I don't know. we got kids who will live stream while they're in class in the computer room, and they'll sit their phone on the keyboard, and so they're live streaming their face looking at the screen. And I don't get that, but we've seen kids on that. And we have to tell them, if you get somebody in the shop that shouldn't be there, you shouldn't be doing that. Like I do not. Like when I started doing my vlogs on my channel, I talked a lot about what I did at school, because that's where most of my making happens.
Sure.
But I will not include, and I'll include the kids' projects, but I won't include any of the students.
No,
that makes perfect sense. Yeah,
that makes sense. It protects you from parental revenge. Anyway, all right. Last question. Then we can move on. Well, Richard, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, talking about the kids and what, and I know Caitlin asked a few minutes ago. What's the deal with the kids and the schools at the moment? Are the kids back at school, or?
Oh God, they went back too early.
Okay, is this going to get political?
When the virus started really ramping up back in March, I remember I walked into a meeting, the staff meeting in the morning, wearing a mask because I'm concerned about it. So I just had my RZ mask on when I went down, and the boss came over and told me to take it off, and I said no. And he said, yeah, you need to take it off. It'll cause hysteria. And I said, no, I'm not taking it off. He said, well, leave. So I did. And then later that day, I said to him, look, I don't feel like I can be at school, because the kids had already stopped coming to school. Like our numbers had dropped from our regular, even though we got 650, you might have 600 at school on a day or less, but our numbers had dropped down to 400. or so, because some of the seniors were already staying home, some of the parents were already keeping them home. And I said, well, look, I need to stay home. And then within a week, they started telling parents to please keep their kids at home. And that was probably about week 9 of an 11-week term. And by the end of the term, there was like 4 kids at the school. Like, our schools never technically closed. There was always staff on site because of the fact that some kids can't stay home because their parents are essential workers.
But the school's currently active with children.
Yeah, we went through loads and loads and loads of professional development about how to teach from home and how to learn from home. We started providing computers for kids who didn't have them and that sort of stuff. They started even providing Wi-Fi dongles for students who didn't have internet access at home. And that was going well. So when we returned to school because we have an Easter break for 2 weeks, when we were returning to school, it was no students at school unless you could not stay at home because your parents were an essential worker. And so we had there was about 14 kids at school. I stayed home working from home just because of my health concerns and my wife's health concerns. And the rest of the staff would kind of roster themselves around if they wanted to be at school or they weren't. And they developed a phased plan to return to school. And it was about 5 stages of phasing to try and get them back in. And after the one of please stay home, when they wanted to try and get them back, we started saying we went by our roll call classes. And so because of family names, so that all the kids from one family might come in at the same time. And there was probably only about 50 to 100 kids on the site at a time. And they only came in 1 day a week. And then it was supposed to be 2 days a week. But after the 1 day a week, they just decided, well, kids don't catch it, kids don't pass it, let's all go back to school.
Well, let me just point this out real quick, and you can confirm or deny, and then we can move on. But I mean, Australia hasn't had the outbreak that other countries have had. I mean, you guys have actually contained it pretty well, correct?
Yeah, there was
correct.
Only about 7,500 for the whole country. Cases, and it was we only pipped over the 100 deaths like a month or so ago. Ooh, Chris disappeared.
I'm sure he'll be back.
And
one is
we're having a second outbreak down in Victoria at the moment. And it's a case of all of a sudden, like, finding 100 people a day down in the state.
I mean,
so we've jumped to 8,500.
Yeah, I mean, only one death is all you need for it to be horrible. I mean, let's be honest. But I genuinely wonder if some part of those figures is, I guess, helped by the geography of the country. Although you've got you've got highly populated areas, but they are kind of isolated populated areas, rather than you come to the UK and you can walk from house to house all the way from one end to the other because everything's crammed in together. So,
well, I think we really only have 5
Well, I don't want to get into
major cities. Yeah,
I don't want to get into a coronavirus show.
No.
So what do you say we move on?
This was what I was going to go with. That was that it kind of brings us back to what Jamie was asking with the plywood and the different materials and the availability of stuff, because you've got, where you are in kind of Western Sydney area, it might be an area where you can get one particular material or have access to a particular type of something, but somewhere else like Melbourne, and I couldn't tell you how far apart they were, but from my understanding they're fairly
3,000 k's.
So fairly separate locations. I mean, that is completely different country in terms of my kind of headspace, and probably Jamie the same. If we thought
No,
3,000 kilometers away,
yeah.
that's nearly in Russia, I think, from where we are. So that's like a huge place, huge distances. So rather than being so closely linked together, I mean, even with you.
Yeah, well, when you think France is 25 miles from me.
Yeah, you're close. You're actually closer to France than you are to me, Jamie. That's the kind of.
My school is 54 k's from me, so that's about there to France.
I'm going to interrupt because we're going to get this back on track, like right now, because we need another question from Mr. Pugh. Andy, once again, asked another intelligent question. He says, "I know from following your vlogs, Damien, for a while he's been following them. You and your team do a good job of maintaining shop classes going. Yep. So you've been a proponent of keeping shop classes going, but he wants to know, is that you and your team being an outlier, or is that pretty much the norm with every school that you know of in Australia? I guess he's wanting to know, are shop classes that you have made a point to keep going a normal thing across the country, or is it a just something you kind of kicked in the butt to make sure it keeps going?
Well, like in years 7 and 8, it's compulsory. It's one of the mandatory subjects. Like when in high school, years 7 and 8, the kids are told what they have to learn, or what subjects they have to do, and ours is one of them. It doesn't get as much classroom time as stuff like English and maths. They probably get double the periods roughly than what we do. So I'll see, my teachers will see their kids 5 hours over 2 weeks. We run on a 2-week cycle.
So and then, okay.
Yeah, and then so we run 1 hour lessons at our school. So we'll see them 5 times in a cycle. When it comes to year 9, they still have mandatory subjects like the core subjects of English, Maths, Science, PE, and HISI, which is History, Geography. But creative arts, music, sport things, and all of our subjects are all classed as electives. So we sell them to the kids and they get to choose 2 for the next 2 years. And then when you get to year 11 and 12, English is the only mandatory subject for year 11 and 12. There's moves to make maths compulsory, which I think starts next year. But every other subject is an elective then, so it's really a case of sell your subject to try and get them in. And so we have an elective night where every faculty is really trying to sell their subjects to the kids, and the kids make an elective, and we see if they, and like I said, because I do the timetable at our school, we really try to make it so that the kids get what they want to be able to do. So our subjects are really student-centered from year 11 and 12. And
does that go back to where you were talking about the kids used to only have to go through 10th grade? And so if they now go through to 11th and 12th, they are required to do one course, which is paid for, but the rest they have to fund for themselves. Is that correct?
No,
I mean, or have I got that wrong?
Everything's paid for.
Okay. Well, then I didn't understand.
We used to run fees for electives to try and keep them running, and thankfully my boss decided, we're in a low socioeconomic area. It became a real pain for us to try and say to the kids, you've made something you can't take it home because you haven't paid for it. And so he funds everything up to year 10. And then when we get to year 11 and 12, there's only fees required for subjects that have a
cost,
a consumable. So, and to try and make it fairer, he also said like any vet course, because like construction, engineering, hospitality are classed as vocational courses. They were based off the construction price that I put on it, which was $60 for a year, and things like art and photography, I think they were $40 a year, and timber was and food were 55, just to cover consumable costs. When it gets to year 12, my subjects are one I really know about, industrial technology. The kids have to design and make a project, and that's what they get their marks for, and they have to pay for that course and they have to budget it, and that's part of the actual syllabus. They learn how to budget for a project, and they make a folio to document the whole process, and they build a project, document it with a folio. It has a due date, and then there's a team of markers that travel the state and mark them. So we don't actually mark them.
So if you, Caitlin's asking in the chat, if you do a subject in, or rather, if you're unable to do a subject in, say, years 9 and 10, would you possibly, or would there be the opportunity perhaps to do that subject in years 11 and 12?
Yeah, in year 11 and 12, subjects don't have a prerequisite. So if you haven't done it in 9 and 10, you can still do it in 11 and 12. The syllabuses are written, so there is a let's get started type of thing with it. Obviously, though, if you've done it in year 9 and 10, you've got a little bit of an advantage over the rest. And but like my year 11 timber class this year, there was no year 10 timber class last year, so they're all brand new students. So you're really starting from scratch, and a lot of the content gets repeated. So I feel a little sorry for the kids who did do it in 9 and 10, because we've heard this before, but when it comes to actually using the tools, they definitely have an advantage and know what to do first.
Yeah, I guess sometimes as a child you're thinking, oh, I've done all this before, why are we doing this again? But then when you actually do that in a practical setting, you're like, yeah, I've done this before, I'm actually quite good at this now, and then you kind of feel better about what it is you're doing.
And our numbers are up now because it's now compulsory to stay at school until you're 17.
All right. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I was just going to break this whole thing up and change the subject entirely. So you finish your thought, please.
No, sorry. I genuinely, because I don't want to kind of labour the point with the school. I mean, obviously you're a teacher, but one thing I was going to ask was, how do you think, or how have you seen, like, the kids take on the industrial arts kind of stuff, whether it be photography or woodworking or whatever it is, after school, kind of into either careers or into higher or further education or whatever? Do you get...
Because I teach construction as well, and we also have a metals and engineering course, and hospitality, and business services, retail. There's a lot of vet courses in our school, and we do have quite a number of students who, if they've done hospitality or construction, they'll go out into that field after school, and we actually follow them up with a survey to find out where they are. And so there's a lot of kids from, I think we tend to try and say, try and find a trade rather than university, because you don't need university. And our vet course is actually, if the kids are successful at it, they've basically earned the first 1 to 2 years of their apprenticeship. So what I sign the kids off with, I sign my guys off with a Cert 2 in construction pathways, and that allows them to go into carpentry, bricklaying, plumbing, electric, all that sort of stuff, because they have the core units that are part of that apprenticeship. And if they do decide to go off and try and get a job in that sort of area and find an apprenticeship, their employer is basically hiring a kid who's a second year rather than a first year.
So do you find like a lot of your kids are looking to go into, say, bricklaying or site carpentry, or is that, this is what I want to do?
Yeah, they have that idea. They've probably got family who are in the building trades, and they want to try and be more than just a labourer. So they try and, I want to be a carpenter, I want to be a plumber, I want to be an electrician, that sort of stuff. And so I know out of my past students, I've got students who are now plasterers, builders, bricklayers, that sort of stuff. So they've all several have gone out and have done that, and they usually come back and tell you about their success stories and the fact that they've got their full certificate. They're working now. They might be a sole tradie, working for themselves as a hire in or a subby.
But I mean, what sort of percentage of sorry, Chris, because I'm genuinely interested.
Well, then, that's okay. Go ahead.
I mean, what kind of percentage for your classes do you think, just roughly, would be people that want to go into a trade, and what is just people that are either kind of passing time at school or have a vague interest or are still undecided?
If I talk about my construction kids, I started the year with 28 kids. I would say maybe a third of them are serious about the course. The other third have a vague interest, and the other third are, what am I going to do? I've got to stay at school, or may as well follow my mates. And there's some that have picked the subject because older brothers or sisters have picked the subject and they found out it was pretty good. I'm getting more girls picking the courses because in the last few years, the kid who came first at the end of the year was always the girl in the class. They seem to be a little bit more focused and have been the most successful.
All right, I'm interrupting. No, Richard, shut the hell up because we're done. Okay.
Sorry.
I want to ask a frivolous question because I just think there's a lot of people out there that might want to know this. Now, Damien, I don't want a long answer. I want a short answer, okay? Because we have to let Jamie sing here, and there's all sorts of nonsense
that's the truth, Larry.
Long answer. Long answer.
He stopped it because he wanted to hear me sing.
No, I don't. No, I don't. But I will confess something, and I don't believe I've confessed to anybody before. Is I have been to your country. I have been to Sydney, but I have only been there as a tourist, and I was only there for 3 days. So I didn't see much of your country. I only saw Sydney, and, I was on the tourist thing in the Opera House and blah, 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 whatever.
Yeah.
If you were to suggest somebody that wanted to come to Australia and they really wanted to experience Australia outside of, between the Outback and Sydney, where would you suggest they go and enjoy Australia as for what it is? Because a lot of people are not familiar with your country, and I'd like to know what your opinion is on that.
It's weird because when you live somewhere, you actually don't do a lot of the stuff.
No, I'm not looking for touristy stuff. Yeah. I'm just going, where does real life happen in Australia if you want to go live and experience it?
I think real life actually happens in the city and the suburbs. Like, I would suggest anybody tries to get into Outback Australia because that's where I think people are a little bit more real.
Okay.
And you can see a city in every country, and a lot of cities are pretty much similar.
And there's different regions and there's different things. I just didn't know if you had a general one that you could say, if you want to come experience Australia and you want to see how the majority of Australians live, and this is maybe a good place, and it may even be a median, and it may not be one or the other, but obviously, I could invite people. I could invite people from your country to come to New York, but that's going to be a hell of a lot different if I invite them to come to San Francisco.
Yeah,
the totally two different cultures. So you got to find a median. That was what I was asking for. But you know what?
Yeah, it's going to be very. Yeah, each major city is very different. Some are a little bit more hectic. Some are a little bit more relaxed. Sydney's a horrible place to try and drive around. I know that.
Oh no, I know. I didn't drive. I walked. My wife. Well, I'll give you the story. My wife was we flew over because my wife had a conference in Australia, and I just happened to be a tag along. And while she was working, I was out gallivanting. So yeah. Anyway, all right. Well, I don't want to prolong this any further. So Jamie, if your vocal cords are warmed up,
you have to make sure you take a first aid kit with you, because Australia is the only country that tries to kill you as soon as you land.
Very true.
Well, that could happen. I've seen the videos.
Yeah. Right, it's time for Jamie's page. Right.
Actually, wasn't too bad.
Yeah, it's not too bad, eh? Right, so this is actually a couple of weeks late, but there's a little bit of a congratulations to Ben's Works, one of Damo's fellow Aussies, who just reached 100,000 subscribers.
Oh, lucky bugger.
So, congratulations to Ben's Works.
Congrats.
Nicely done.
Yeah, it says that. So stickers, if anyone's interested in stickers, as always, go to magazeinternationalpodcast.com/stickers. Click on the little picture icon. It'll take you to a website. It's a one email, one use kind of deal. So if you've used your email to get stickers from there before, set up another email address and you will get £20 off at checkout for your stickers.
Cheat the company. Cheat the company.
Cheat the company. There you go.
I'm not strictly sure about the legality of saying to somebody,
I'm not quite sure
just
that
make
either.
up another email. That'll be fine. Like,
Whatever.
I don't know. I'm not quite sure where we stand on that.
Hey, look, this podcast has nothing to do with what Jamie says during his page. So
do you know what?
It's on him.
I don't actually know if that's strictly true. I just know that somebody had trouble setting up getting stickers last time with their email.
Wait to backpedal, buddy. All right, go ahead.
Whatever.
As we understand it,
To the best of our knowledge.
That's why I say just set up another email address because it was easier.
just to be sure.
Good luck with that. Gmail.
And obviously, another part of the segment is both Caitlin and I have got premieres tonight. Mine's at 11 p.m. Caitlin's is at 11:15. As far as I know, Caitlin, can you confirm nor deny that you got a premiere tonight?
She does. I saw her comment on that earlier. So get over your self-promotion and move on. Let's go.
I was promoting Caitlin. I just happened to have a premiere as well. Right. So my shout out this week goes to now I saw this ever since I saw the pictures that she posted this week. I just couldn't wait for the video because I thought it looked awesome. So the video, my shout out this week goes to Kim Tippin Wood Turning. She made a bowl out of resin and wood, and it was called the 4th of July Bowl Stars and Stripes.
Awesome.
Bowl, and it came out awesome. So yeah, Kim Tippin is my shout out this week.
All right, I'll go because I know Richard's going to need time to find one, if he even has one. And Damien, I don't know if you have one. If you don't, then don't worry about it. Then don't worry about it. My shout out goes to this week. Another guy that is just like, wow, good to see your face, brother. Bill Lutz, William Lutz on YouTube. If you haven't seen it, yeah, I did take your shout out, but I took it before you. Now, okay, so let me backstory. Normally, we let people know what our shout outs are before we do the show, so we don't get them confused and double up. And Jamie had said he was going to do Bill Lutz, and I said that's the one I'd already picked. And anyway, it got ugly after that.
Luckily, I was already debating on whether to have Kim or Bill as a shout out, so I already had Kim's there as well.
So if anyone's a little bit unsure, we
stepped aside.
We have like an offline chat group thing that we bounce messages across about the podcast midweek. And do you remember Peanuts? Mm-hmm. When like two people on Peanuts would fight, it was like a text version of the ball with the thing between Jamie and Chris going, that was my one, no, I want that one.
Anyway.
Yeah. So just visualize that.
However, Jamie and I may have disagreed. He still deserves a shout out. So Bill Lutz, William Lutz on YouTube, he redid a 100-year-old Winchester lever action makeover. I tell you why I was interested in that, because I actually have a Winchester 3030, just like, it's not the same year, it's not the same model, but one quite like it that I had done myself several years ago, but I didn't go through the extent that he did it with. But yeah, kind of a cool video. If you're interested in looking at how things can be, and there are a lot of restored videos out there. They get a ton of views. And so if you're looking to see how an 1894 model Winchester 3030 that was made in the 1920s gets restored, I'd give Bullets a look, because that was actually a pretty cool video.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was.
My ones, I think I shouted him out as well in one of the Facebook groups, but Justin White,
known
known as the Garage Avenger.
Oh,
on
yeah,
Instagram
yeah.
and stuff. He's an Aussie, but he lives in Norway, and I won't hold that against him. And he's got I don't know how I found his podcast, but he's got a podcast called Make Ideas Reality. And he, like, an interview podcast with the not so well-known makers. And I found a few new makers off his podcast, and it's a nice, I think it's a cool podcast to listen to that comes out once a week.
Awesome.
I think, roughly.
Yep.
Applause to that.
Yeah, he's got a great YouTube channel as well where he makes some cool stuff.
So the Garage Avenger. Awesome. Richard?
Yeah, so as Chris has already identified, I don't have a shout out this week. I literally haven't watched any YouTube videos at all, not even one. I have seen the Kim Tippins preview and Bill's preview in my feed, so I was aware of them. I wasn't aware of the Garage Avengers podcast, but that is a channel I'm familiar with. I'm just going to shout out the people in the live chat because I don't know, because I missed the start of the show. I'm going to assume that Jamie mentioned a few of them, but I'm going to mention a few anyway, and they are people like Karam, Chris and Emma from Dragon Tales, Dale at Maple Tree Studios, Steve from SK Crafts, Roman Highlander, all the people basically that every week in, week out are listening to us in the live show, and that includes you as well, Damo, because you're a regular listener to the show. You're generally in the chat, regardless of the fact that what are you 11 hours ahead of us? It's like complete Monday where you are.
I've been happy to be able to be in the chat because I've been at home. So because normally when the show's on, I'm getting ready for work and driving. So
yeah, I mean,
I
to me that
live.
I can barely sort of comprehend that, because like normally when we're talking to people that are listening to us in the future, but you're actually with us live and you're actually in our future, because not only is it hours different, it's a different day. That just but so yeah, you are always welcome on the show as a guest and as a live listener, as are most people. So yeah,
kind of funny, really. He's trying to wake up and we're trying to put him to sleep.
Basically, yeah. Wrap it up, Richard. Let's get out of this.
Absolutely. Well, I don't think we're going to be doing a live. We're not on Patreon, but we do a little freebie over to show anyway. I don't honestly know, because I don't think I will, because I've got to be up at silly o'clock in the morning because I'm on an early shift at the hospital. So I kind of want to go to bed. But Damo, thanks for coming on. I genuinely was looking forward to this. I've been following you on Instagram for quite some time now and enjoying your feed along with lots of other people. So yeah, thanks very much for coming on. Thank you for listening. If you are still listening, as always, if you're not, we will say what we like about you, whether you like it or not. Until next week, when we talk about something else and none of us know. Sorry, Chris, but let's face it, we haven't got a clue. Shoot us some topics, questions if you want to be on the show, or you've got something to add, then we'll definitely happy to listen. So until next week, you all take care. Cheerio.
OOJAGAPIVY, give them a sub. You guys have a great week. I'll talk to you later.
Take it easy, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.